there's this really great line at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet that talks about, their lines, and
Yeah.
we pronounce it lines, like the family line, and we leave it at that. In Shakespeare's time in English, the word line and the word loin were pronounced almost identically, so it was more like lines. So that's a double joke, both because of their family and because they're hormonal teenagers. Like
Right.
it, yeah. So this tragedy unfolds not just because of their family name, but also because they are insanely hormonal teenagers.
Which explains the rest of the play for
Oh
those of
yeah,
us. Yeah.
like the reason like Romeo and Juliet doesn't land these days because it's not played properly. Like these are supposed to be children, and cousin Petruchio, who's 40 years old, his humorous bit doesn't really land because he's being played as the same age as everybody else. So like the language was so much different then compared to now that a lot of the humor doesn't really land because we just don't speak the same way.
No. Interesting. So what was your background? What got you to this point in your where you are right now, Eddie?
My
Starts
father
to sharpen quills, but let's fill in some blanks here.
My background, I grew up around graphic design and lettering. My father was a graphic designer. He graduated from George Brown in Toronto. He was literally one of the very first digital graphic designers in the world. I remember him switching from pen and ink to the computer, and it was like computers couldn't even compare at the time. It was it was it was
It was
it was
a
a struggle with my dad. My dad was really into technology, but he was also a typesetter. So in the Niagara region where I grew up, my dad did a lot of typesetting for a lot of the business directories in the area. So I kind of grew up in typesetting shops, and I got to look through drawers of type and things like that. I grew up around printing presses and printers, and it was just kind of in the background. I actually got into the music industry for decades, and it wasn't until the pandemic hit that I was like, oh, well, I need a creative project to keep my mind occupied. I'll learn calligraphy. I had this manuscript fountain pen set that I purchased on sale in like 2017, and I had fiddled around with it a couple of times and tossed it in a drawer. And I was like, no, that's too much effort. But turns out during the pandemic, I had a lot of time to put that effort into learning. Originally, I learned just a basic Uncial script because I wanted to create a illuminated manuscript copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, like medieval style, which I still haven't done. I started learning all of the paint making and quill cutting because I wanted to be as authentic as possible. And I just kind of got hung up on the quill cutting. And I started reading these things, and like there was very little information online about quill cutting when I
I
started.
because I looked and looked and looked and looked.
Yes, yes. And I've come to learn that a lot of the information that you can readily find online is a lot of hooey, and there's a lot of things that got really misconstrued because these pages were made in the early days of the internet by college students, and they didn't research their projects very well, but they posted the information anyway. Kind of like a lot of these pages are from before it wasn't allowed to use Wikipedia for making your student papers, and so
Right.
like, well, this is from a university webpage. I'm like, yes, but it's from 1997. And like, I literally have a list of sources here you can look at to see why this person is not quite right. AI is going to kill the teaching industry because the amount of times I've had a pen cutting student be like, you're wrong because Google says.
Look, I mean, there are lots of ways that ChatGPT makes my life easier, but I'm trying to design that experience hall that we were talking about, and I throw in dimensions, and it gives me these things. And it's like, so one of the walls is 55 feet long, and it gives me a design for it. It's like, so this piece is 20 feet, and this piece is 10 feet, and this piece is 20 feet, and then you've got a 2 5 feet. And I'm like, okay, I grew up in Saskatchewan, and math is not my favorite. Still, I
Did
don't think that adds up.
percentages. I mean, who cares?
Great tool, but it is often wrong.
Yeah, yes. That's yes. But yeah, so in my journey for quill cutting, and actually the whole in-depth study of pen cutting started because I read a little blip about a preparation for quills before cutting called the Dutch method. And there was like a few different descriptions of how the Dutch method was done, and they were all wildly contradictory. And so these were all like in the it's these British doctors gave these lectures, and they started with, "Oh yeah, I visited this factory while I was in Holland, and this is what I saw." But not a single one of them were like consistent with describing what they saw. I don't know if like they just didn't take notes and were trying to remember the night before they gave a lecture or something. Anyway, the most surprising thing I learned while studying pen cutting is that the death of the quill pen can be directly attributed to Dr. Michael Faraday. So in 1835, Dr. Michael Faraday, who was obviously huge into electricity and the mechanization of everything, did a series of lectures in the UK. And he was super popular with young college students because he demonstrated everything. He was very interactive in the way he taught. And so people really picked up what he taught, even though he was an honorary doctor.
I think.
Sorry?
I think he was also just understood to be a very charismatic person.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. I've read the transcripts of his lectures. He was absolutely brilliant. But he got it into his head that the steel pen was far superior to the quill pen. It would save people so much money. It would save England so much money because at the time they were importing roughly 2.5 million quills a year from Holland and Russia. Yes, it was a well-known fact that the very, very best quills came from the Netherlands and Muscovy. So it was, yeah, who knew? Cold weather makes good quills.
There you go. Well, that makes some sense to me.
It does because they've got to be stronger. Yeah. But anyway, so he went through and he actually brought a steel pen manufacturing apparatus and the crew to set it up and run it for all of these lectures. And he managed to change the public's mind so much during that series of lectures that there was a steep decline in the production of quill pens and a sharp rise in the production of steel pens after he delivered these lectures.
You're going to show us how to do this, are you? Or are you going to write for us?
Would you like to learn how to cut a pen?
I want to learn how to cut a pen.
Right. We'll do a broad edge pen because that's really the easiest way to start. Now, we'll start by debunking a popular myth in pen cutting culture. Here I have 2 feathers from a right wing and one from a left wing. So you'll see the short vein on the left-hand side of the quill there. That means that that short vein faces forward on the pinion feathers. So think of these as like the bird's fingernails. These are the only 5 feathers on the bird that have independent direction from the rest of the feathers. That's how they adjust their flight and lift and all that stuff. But
a bunch of information.
I've done a lot of studying. I'm actually writing a book about pen cutting. It's comprehensive. It has a brief history and all of the information you need to cut pens for yourself, along with references so that you can go back and study. I'm not including the translations that I've done and had done in the book other than where they need to be quoted. But yeah, that's something else that other people can have fun doing, is translating. I found lots of material. More is being digitized every day, and it's taking a lot longer to write this book now than when I started, because I keep finding new stuff and I have to experiment, and it's all very modern and scientific, so you should be able to reproduce exactly the same results every time.
Fantastic. Okay.
But the first myth in pen cutting is that it matters which side of the bird the feather comes from. People will say, if you're a right-handed calligrapher, you'll want to use a left wing because it curves away from the hand. I'm going to show you why that's wrong using these right wing feathers.
Okay.
So first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare the pen for cutting. Now this quill here, you'll see that it's fully intact. This is age cured. This is a 2-year-old quill. It's nice and hard and ready for cutting. And so there's a slightly more complicated method to preparing this, which is why I'm showing you how to prepare one like this.
Go to the park and pick up the feathers that have fallen out of the Canadian geese.
That's exactly what I do.
Oh, and then you save them for 10 years?
Usually 1 to 5 years, depending on how thick 5 years mostly for swan quills. I gather swan quills as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's age curing. There's other methods of tempering and curing quills that you can literally go and gather your quills and prepare them the next day.
Okay.
But if you want to age cure them, you just leave them sit somewhere. I recommend storing them with cedar oil or cedar wood because moths love to eat the whole quill, including the barrel. And the last thing you want is a moth infestation.
No. Okay.
Also, wear gloves if you're gathering quills until you get them completely clean because birds are disgusting.
Birds are disgusting and filled with, I know, I used to smoke the feathers when I was a young child, and my mom used to go into
But your immune system is fantastic now. Okay.
I was probably 2 or 3, but my mother remembers that was something that they had to guard against when we went to work.
That's proper parenting. That yes. So we're now going to prepare to turn this feather into a pen. So first we're going to do is strip the barb, and that's really easy. You just kind of grab the fluffy side, kind of about 8 or 9 inches up the quill. And you're just going to give a quick yank, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now, if you pull too slowly, like if you're too cautious yanking those barbs off, it will actually peel the barrel all the way down and ruin your quill. So just be confident. Confident.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim my quill down to size. So all the stuff at the top. And now you'll see it doesn't really make that much difference which way the curve is going because it's still not blocking my sight and it's not intermoving. Traditionally, the barb would never have been left on the feather. Feathers are designed to catch air, so you're going to end up with wobbly letters if you're trying to write with the vein on your pen, and you're going to be very frustrated very quickly. 2, goose feathers are really, really long, and swan feathers are even longer. You're constantly going to be poking yourself or brushing your pen against yourself while writing, and again, it throws off your letters. So those artistic representations, people are like, oh, historically they used both. The historic representations of the vein on the pen was just so that you knew what type of pen was being used. This is a quill pen as opposed to a reed pen.
Right.
Ask me how long it took to figure that out.
Figure that out, Eddie.
Oh, God, at least 6 months. Yeah, as I've looked at so many historical manuscripts of like scribes, and I've also learned that right back in the 700s, scribes had modular furniture that like would put IKEA to shame these days. Like scribes had travel setups were just mind blowing. If I could figure out, because the perspective was all weird back then, but if I could figure out how these things actually worked, you make a fortune selling to reenactors. So the next is we're going to take our knife. For most of my pen cutting, I use an X-Acto knife with a number 11 blade. For most of pen cutting, I'll use this. I also have this really nice custom-made pen knife from Chris Yoke of the Yoke Pen Company, but I need to sharpen, so I'm using that today. It's very, very pretty. It was very expensive, but worth every penny. So we're going to take the back of our X-Acto knife here, and we're going to scrape the waxy outer membrane off the outside of the quill. I don't know if you can see all that flake flying off.
See it falling off.
If you don't scrape this off, the ink will not stick to the pen, and it'll just blob on your pen, give you a lot of frustration. You want to get as much of that off as you can, and you can feel it just by running your fingers up and down. There's a noticeable difference once you've gotten the waxy bit off.
Okay. And does it make a difference if it's a swan quill or a goose quill? They both have that waxy.
Every quill that you cut will have that waxy outer membrane. From swan quills all the way down to gull quills. I will not be demonstrating raven and crow quill cutting today because that's much more advanced and you can't really demonstrate it on camera. It's too small. Unless you've got like some sort of micro video set up, and I do not.
I do not.
All right, so that's the outside's all nice and scraped off. I'm going to find where the pen sits comfortably in my hand. So you're just going to, when you cut the nib of your pen, you just kind of want to find where the pen sits comfortably to write, and that is going to be the top of your nib. So whatever's facing up when you're holding comfortably, that's going to be your nib. Now, I'm coming from the back because this is a quill with the end still on it, and I'm going to do a sharp angled cut away from me all the way through the quill to take that sharp tip off. So now I've got this kind of angled shape.
It looks like a straw or something you could smoke.
Yes, it does.
Apparently.
These have been cleaned, steamed, and disinfected, so these are safe to put into your mouth. Every quill that comes into my studio is fully cleaned. Bless my wife, because in the summertime during molting season, she'll often go to have a shower in the morning and there'll be like 300 quills in the bathtub.
You know, the risks of marriage, right?
Love is a beautiful thing, and that's what it
Love
looks
is
like.
a beautiful thing.
Love is calmly moving 300 quills without waking me up. So now we've got this, and we're going to flip our pen over. The rest of what we're going to do from the bottom. And if you're not comfortable with using sharp knives, this might really freak you out, because all the cuts. So when you're holding your quill knife, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? The thumbnail's tiny in my phone. All right, so this is your proper holding technique for your knife. You want to be able to scoop. So we're going to scoop about halfway. We're going to come up. Oh, that wasn't quite deep enough. So we now have this kind of horn shape at the end here. See that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. The next tool I'm going to take out is my trusty crochet hook.
Of course.
Yes, because I mean, why not?
Why not?
Inside of your quill, you are going to see this kind of weird material. Can you see me pushing that up there?
Yeah. Yep. Membrane. It looks like a little bit like hair.
Yeah, that's the quick. That's inside the quill. That's what brings the blood to the feathers before they're in mold.
Okay. Never really thought about feathers having a.
So I'm just gonna take my just at the very ends. Like they don't have feeling all the way up, just to the very edge of the.
Of course, especially if they're using them to, steer themselves.
Like in a dog or cat toenail, it's the same kind of thing. The quick can grow out. Yeah. So I'm gonna take my crochet hook. I'm gonna stick it inside. I'm gonna give it a little twist, and I'm gonna pull out the quick, and then it just comes out. You can also just kind of like take a chopstick or something and poke it up to the end, as long as it's not interfering with your ink. Because if ink gets in there, it's going to ruin your pen. Okay. Why I like to remove them.
For these, once you make them.
Sorry?
How long is a quill good for once you cut it?
That depends how long the barrel of the quill is. It depends on the type of paper you're writing with, even the ink that you're using. I always write with iron gall ink with my quills, just because it doesn't gum up the works if I forget to rinse off my pen frequently. India ink is a quill's worst friend. It will gum up the works so fast that you won't be able to write efficiently very, very quickly, no matter how often you're rinsing and wiping. You can probably get a single session out of a quill if you're using India ink, and then you'll want to recut it. That being said, your quill can be resharpened right up until the very, very end of the slit. So once you've made the slit, we're not there yet, but I'll show you once we get there. Yeah, so generally you can go, 20, 25 pages on a single nib, and then you can turn the pen over and recut a new nib just on the opposite side of the pen, which is another reason why the side of the wing the feather comes from doesn't matter. Right. But we're going to keep on here. So we've got our first cut here. We've got our quick out. So you can see that little boat shape on the bottom side there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to make another cut in the same kind of scooping motion. So I'm going to come further down, and I want to kind of come all the way to the end of those horns. So now I'm going to start pairing the sides before I start making the nib slit here. So an important thing to remember when you're bringing your sides in is to kind of rotate your quill. So you want to make more of a rotational cut, and that goes the other way too. So you want to spin it the other way as you're coming out. If you just go straight in, you're going to end up with thin sides on the end of your nib, and it's going to catch ink and just kind of pool, and you won't end up with crisp hairlines. Plus, they'll be a little bit bendy, and yeah. It'll be like using a drinking straw to do calligraphy.
See the disadvantages to that?
A few, although I have seen some fantastic calligraphy done with a drinking straw pen. Roughly bring this into the size that I want it. And you want to make sure, whoops, I just dropped my scratch paper there. You want to make sure that there's no arch left on the bottom of the nib after it's cut, because otherwise just those 2 points are going to come in contact with the paper, unless you're using a writing slant. Writing slants are also a really good friend for writing with a quill. 40 to 70 degrees is recommended, so you could literally be writing almost like this, but you won't lose the ink like you do when you're writing straight up and down. So I'm just going to finish pairing off this nib, and then I'll show you the next. Right, I'm going to adjust my camera here because you'll need to see my table for this. And I can't see the camera anymore, Jill, so you're going to have to let me know if this is Can you see the glass plate here?
Perfect.
So this glass plate is where I'm going to shape my nib. First, I'm going to start by laying it flat on its back and kind of even off the tip here. Well, that was awful. Now, because of the way I cut that, that also started my slit. I don't know if you can see that right on the tip of the nib there.
That I can see. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to now just do some fine cutting here.
I can see what you're saying about fear of blades, because as you're doing that, I am fearful for you.
When I do an actual medieval demonstration, all of the cutting for the nibs is done on the fingernail like this. Now that's when I want to use my quill knife, because this is a bit floppy for that. So I won't be doing that with this knife.
Yeah.
So see how I've got the knife kind of on an angle to the edge of the nib here? I'm working with the top of the nib again here.
Okay.
Put that down on my glass plate, and I'm going to cut an angle to get a chisel tip.
There you go. Amazing.
Yeah, so now this is what I was talking about. I don't know if you can see the curve at the bottom there.
A little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to
zoom in when we do this in post-production, so hopefully we'll be able to see it super clear.
I'm going to pare those little fins off of the bottom here very carefully. And you can see I'm, again, rotating my quill as I'm paring those sides up.
How long did it take you to get good at this?
A few months. It really... it's not as difficult to learn to cut and write with a quill as some people would have you believe. The important things to remember is quills are made out of the same material as your fingernails. So as long as when you're writing, you think more like I'm writing with my fingernail than I'm writing with a pen, you won't have to worry that much because you won't be putting too much pressure. The biggest issue new people have with writing with a quill is they put too much pressure on the pen and it splits it right up. But yeah, as long as you treat it more like fingernail writing than writing with a pen, you should be fine. And you'll really develop a much better control of pressure that way too. Another thing with using natural materials is it doesn't always quite go the way you want it to. Don't get frustrated if you're just starting to learn how to cut pens. There's lots of differences in each quill, let alone from bird to bird. Weather, diet, it all affects the way the quill behaves, and this one's a little bit brittle, so I'm having a slight bit of a time getting a clean end on her. When in doubt, scrape it down more. Okay, so I don't have a very clean cut because my knife needs to be sharpened, but now that I've got basic nib cut, I'm going to put it back upside down. Can you see that there? I'm going to put it down there. I'm going to take my knife blade and put it in the middle of the nib, right up to about the shoulder. I'm going to rock forward onto the point until I hear a snap, like that. Aha, that's why I was having so much trouble. So sometimes in your quill, you'll find that there's weak spots. And if there's a weak spot in your quill, you might end up with a weird little hairline fracture like that when you go to make your nib split. I don't know if you can see that weird little divot there.
Yeah, very, very vaguely.
Yeah. It's that pen will not be the most efficient pen to write with. I'm still going to try just to see if I can. I'm going to see if I can clean up that nib there. All right. So I wouldn't expect any crisp hairlines from this pen just based on the fact that I didn't put a new blade on before this interview because I'm poorly prepared, and I apologize for that.
I will forgive you.
But this page was all really cut quill. And I do have the quill that I cut earlier here that's not terrible. It was just the last one the knife would handle. All right, here's the moment of truth.
Here's the moment.
It's not holding the ink very well. Now, this is something that also kind of gets fixed if you're writing with a slant board. The ink will last longer. Actually, this pen isn't as bad as I thought. This is definitely easier on a slant. I usually write on a slant.
Yeah, it's too bad that, well, I guess if you had the camera over your shoulder, it would work fine, but that's very lovely writing.
Well, thank you. That's some examples of the secretary hand. And then you have fun little glyphs like this here. And that says the.
It does.
Well, I mean, it will say the if I turn it so that it's not upside down for you.
Wow.
Right? That obviously says the, right?
That's what I'm reading.
Yeah. So oh, of course I just did that. All right. I just dropped the quick right into my ink bottle.
No.
Well, I can fish that out with tweezers later. At least it's a big piece.
Yes. So you do swan, you do goose, of course, and then the raven and the crow.
Raven and crow. I don't have a cut throw quill right now, but I do have one that's prepared for cutting, and that's the size difference there.
Right.
I also developed a method to cure turkey vulture feathers for cutting, which took a lot of doing because they're very, very, very soft. So I wouldn't recommend them for anybody starting out. That was my own
Right.
research and development there. Peacock feathers, the pinion feathers from peacocks, the brown wing feathers, amazing.
Yeah.
Pen feathers don't make pens. Put a ballpoint pen into them and use it as a pen, but you can't because of the structure of the feather. It just doesn't make a pen. Ostrich wing feathers, you can cut a pen out of. Emu wing feathers, you cannot.
Sting.
Yes.
Well, all the things that we didn't know before today. And I'm so intrigued that you just kind of took this up and started to do it as out of nowhere, almost out of a whim, out of one of those COVID whims.
I'll be honest, that the reason I got so involved in the study of pen cutting to the point where people have started calling me, I now call myself a master pen cutter, but it was like almost a year of other people calling me that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I mean, like, all these people taught me how to, do this or do that. So like, there's a list of people. It's like, yeah, but now we're asking you things. So it's like, okay, I guess the whole point of being a master is that you never really consider yourself to have mastered something.
Yes,
because
I think that's true.
Like I'm learning so much still. Like every time I dig into a new French or German manuscript that from like 15 or 1600s, I'm learning new methods. I'm learning new things. Like who would have thought that in Germany in the 50s they were like, never take a feather from a live or dead goose unless it's been thrown naturally, because otherwise the feather isn't ripe and your pen will suck. So it's like, yeah, all of this ethical sourcing, ethical gathering has always been a part of the pen cutting trade, and there's always been people who abuse that, and they're known for their inferior pens. So it's just I just was so fascinated. But yeah, what really got me was the Dutching and how so many people were talking about it. Even in modern times, the process of clarification is often called Dutching. There's another tempering method called touching, where you take a heated tool and you rub it on the inside of the quill to harden it. It's called touching. People also say that it's interchangeable with Dutching, which is not true. Dutching is pretty much you soak your quill for a little bit and then you iron it flat between two heated metal tools. So it's a cool process.
Awesome. Wow. If you can manage Flourish Festival, we'll keep in touch, because I'd love to do something with this if you game.
There's a lot. It's surprising.
It would be, maybe this is not the year. Maybe we have to look for it's gonna be yearly, so maybe we look for 2027 as a part of something.
You know where to find me, and you know what? If I can make it there this year, I will definitely be there with bells on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. And honestly, bells will be appropriate because we're going to have a little bit of fun.
A little bit. Oh man.
A little bit
I mean,
fun.
just seeing Kalo and Nina and Janet together last year, I was like, I love those girls.
Those girls. And Janet's coming back. Nina's coming just for the weekend, hoping to be there also. Michael Saul is coming, and he was a mentor to both Nina and Callo. Well, actually, and to lots of people.
Yeah. No, Michael's been in the calligraphy world for a day or two.
Well,
I mean,
Michael and Eleanor and Barry, who are all three of them they're very traditional penmen, but they've also had a few minutes of experience. And then we have I just think the lineup is great.
Did I see that you have Suzanne?
Sorry?
Did I see Suzanne Cunningham?
So Suzanne Cunningham.
She's awesome too.
Yeah, and Davy Zelzer, Michael Saul, Marco Cioni, who's out from your part of Canada. Renee Alexander's coming. Who else is coming? I'm going to miss someone. Connie Ferguson and Carrie Forster, who are both from Alberta.
Awesome.
I'm missing someone, and I apologize, and it's not because Elmo Van Slingerland is coming from, and Paul Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a pretty awesome one.
Have you met Paul before?
Only on Zoom calls.
Oh my God. He gives literally the best hugs in the entire universe.
I love that.
And make sure he sings for you.
I will make sure he sings for me. Well, perhaps, Eddie, the best way to figure that out is for you to be here and make sure he sings.
No, that's actually, I'll see what I can do. I think I might need to GoFundMe for this one.
Well, and we'll see what we can do. Well, yeah. We'll it's gonna, like, first of all, it's gonna be a blast. And the level of education is great. But we're gonna just have, like, honestly, last year I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of planned it by accident. About 100 of my closest friends in a room.
And I say that deliberately because it was. There hasn't really been a national level calligraphy gathering in Canada. Like, it's just since the 80s, that's just been.
Yeah, I did one in Montreal just before the pandemic, I think. And so honestly, the way I do things is I like to figure it out, make all of my mistakes, as many mistakes as I can the first time I do something, just tweak it, rinse and repeat. So we're planning to make this an annual event, and every time then we can get a little bit better and a little bit easier and have a little more fun. But
awesome.
Yeah, it is going to be it is going to be a really, really fun time. It's good learning. And I was saying to Anne earlier, I love round tables. I love having a whole bunch of people around a table where you can see everybody and talk to everybody and have a meal where people are really in the same room doing the same thing.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a blast. So yes, we'll figure out a way to make it worth your while.
Well, I'll definitely do everything I can to make it out there.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Is there anything else we should talk about before I let you go?
Do you have any other questions? I mean,
we have tons of questions, but I don't know what they are.
Okay.
When's your book coming out? That's what I want to know.
When's my book coming out? Well, the original plan was to have it away for proofreading by the end of this year. But unfortunately, I have since learned a few new methods of tempering that I want to add into the book just because they're neat. And so I still have to do experimentation with that and get that all fixed.
Do a volume 1 and volume 2.
You know what? That's what you're not the first person that said that, because I also want to do a book on making the tools that you need to do a full pen cutting like production studio, like what I do here, like making pens for selling or supplying stationery shops or things like that.
So I can buy pens from you. I just order them and you ship them to me.
Yes.
Excellent. We're going to put the link for that in the bio because not everybody's going to want to do that. And if you come, we'll set you up on a table and people can buy pens from you.
Okay. Fresh cut pens.
Fresh cut pens. How much do you sell them for?
Sorry?
How much do you sell them for?
I sell my pens personally for the Goose Quills are $10 each, Canadian, obviously, because I had to stop selling in the US. And Swan Quills are $20 each because they're much rarer than Goose Quills. And all of the quills out of my studio are gathered by hand. They're ethically sourced. They're 100% cleaned. They're tested. Every pen that's cut is hand tested by me before it leaves my studio. So if there's a little bit of ink residue on your pen, that's why it's been tested to ensure that when it left my studio, it could write properly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I have a plan for you, Eddie, and I'm going to send you an email later with that plan.
That wasn't ominous at all.
But we'll figure out a way to make, to make some numbers work so it makes sense to come out. Because honestly, we have so many Americans coming. I mean, they'll have to smuggle these back in their suitcase. But I mean, honestly, if you're not up for a little bit of smuggling, what are you good for?
Interesting to note that even though the U.S. has those heavy migratory bird laws that prevent gathering feathers, Canada geese don't seem to fall under that category once they've been turned into pens. It's literally just the duty that people have to pay on them when I ship them to the States, and it's not worth it. I mean, they now have to pay almost twice as much per pen as I'm shipping them, as I'm selling them for. So it's just,
if the pens are at the festival, they could buy them there and just put them in their bag like they're
they're just pens. It's like you don't even have to really declare them, right? Like they're $5, $10 pens. I mean, yeah.
So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, Eddie. Any last words? Anything you want to tell us that you're grateful for?
Oh my goodness. I'm super grateful for all the people that gave me a hand when I was starting to learn. Like people in this community just freely gave of their knowledge to me. Like I'm sitting here in the pandemic and everybody's still taking time out of their schedule and responding to me and giving me tips. Not just that, but like coming back to see how I'm doing, making sure that I've grasped the concept. I'm so grateful for this entire community. Like it's unbelievable.
Community of all. Like it is.
Even I can say as a musician who works professionally in the music industry, that level that community, like the community of musicians, is so cutthroat and backstabbing. And then this community, occasionally it happens, but it's super, super rare that it happens in the calligraphy community. And I'm so grateful for the love. Like, oh my God.
It's a really lovely community. Even when you have two people that do exactly the same thing, you almost never hear somebody go, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't think they're very good."
No, in fact, you were talking about Americans purchasing pens. The only other North American pen cutter that I would consider to be a master pen cutter is Lucas from Scribal Workshop, based down in Texas. And he knows, oh God, he probably knows as much, if not more, about pen cutting than I do. He's studied it for years and years and years, and he's absolutely brilliant. He teaches, he sells pens down there. So anytime I have an American who wants to purchase pens from me, I always am like, talk to Lucas. Lucas is also a master pen cutter. You will not be disappointed. He can talk just as long as I can. And I would also like to thank you, Jill, because it's very nice to talk about quills and pens without somebody's eyes glazing over. Thank you for remaining enthusiastic the whole time.
Okay, well, thank you, my friend.